Hey you folks, Redney here with a Racer's Perspective Twitch stream. We stream weeknights from 2200 PST Pacific Standard Time to 2300. Welcome. Tonight we're going to continue our series on wreck ships. Quick recap. Wreck is a currency you can earn in Arena Commander, and that's all game modes, Star Marine and Battle Royale and Racing. Nowhere faster though do you earn wreck than in Racing. And there's quite a few ships that you can actually purchase with wreck and fly either in free flight or of course in Battle Royale or in Racing. And I think it's a wonderful opportunity to try out the different ships, see how they fly, get some practice just being an all-around pilot. So we've done the Aurora series, we've done the Argo MPUV series, and last night we did the 300 series. Tonight I'm going to do the Mustang series. I'm flying with a Corsair K95 keyboard and a Logitech G900 mouse, so it's a mouse and keyboard setup. And let's get right into it. So I'm going to start with the Mustang Alpha. Its top speed is 200 at SCM and 590 meters per second at Afterburner. What I do is I take each of these ships around the track about 5 laps, sometimes a few more, frankly, if I'm not doing so well, getting a decent time, or crash-free time, rather. And then I like to take my favorite of the series out on the track in multiplayer. Lately that's been a little bit of a challenge because it's been difficult to find anyone in multiplayer, so hopefully I have better luck tonight. I also want to encourage anyone who is watching the stream tonight to plan on maybe popping in during that portion of the show and maybe be an opponent. Alright, so let's get in, check out the Mustang Alpha. It's a little drifty. One of the things I noticed about the Mustang going in is that it's got a bit bigger footprint than most of the other smaller ships. It's sure is a sleek looking thing. I really like the look of the Mustang series, but the way those the way those wings come out and down. And I ran out of boost fuel. Wow, that's amazing. It ends up being basically a big box. Okay. So, whoa, geez, I'm having a similar experience as I did last night with the 300 series, where the entry-level ship, this being the Alpha, has quite a bit of drift, poor acceleration, poor deceleration, in this case, really, really poor boost fuel. My goodness, I'm going to run out of fuel every lap in this thing. And as I said before, I suck at fuel management. However, running out of boost fuel in OB in any ship is a bit silly. So I don't know if there's going to be such a thing as a fast lap in this ship. Let's do our best. So I'm gonna kind of go into deferred mode, where I try to manage my fuel. Normally I'm just spamming the boost button in OV and record, but I'll try being a, oh jeez. So I will not be flying the Alpha later. Absolutely not. This is not a racer. So that doesn't make it pointless to take out on the track. As I will have said every night and will say every night of this series, it's not just about getting in the ship and racing and beating out other pilots. You can use especially the single player racing mode to really learn how to handle and pilot a ship. So let's say that my only ship was a Mustang Alpha, or just one of my ships was a Mustang Alpha, and I wanted to be a good pilot in this thing, which I right now am absolutely not. There's no finer place than the track to really get to know your ship and to really master its maneuverability. The checkpoints and the obstacles on the track give you so much opportunity to have to learn how to be precise. And that's really what good flying is, it's precise. Your ship goes where you mean it to go. And not just because of some happy accident. Okay, thankfully this is my last lap. I don't think it's worth trying to fly this one extra laps for a faster time. So we'll just see what I can manage this last time. Oof. So 53 seconds was the best time I could manage in my Alpha. Let's try out the beta. So the beta has a top SEM of 195 and an afterburn of 585. So actually a little bit slower. And I'm just going to pray that that doesn't mean that the maneuvering thrusters are worse as well. Alright, here we go. Definitely still slow on the acceleration and deceleration. Pretty drifty. So far it doesn't feel quite as drifty as the Alpha though. And of course, one of the challenges is that as I race, I'm getting experience with the Gamma series in general, and it's possible that I might end up with better times simply because of practice. But times aside, there's no mistaking for how a ship just feels. This one feels a little bit better to me despite being slower. And of course I mean slower just in terms of top speed. I won't be surprised if I manage better lap times in this thing. In fact, I already have. So I'd say the Beta is definitely a better racer, although it's not a racer. It's better than the Alpha if you're gonna take it out on the track. For the persistent universe, or for ran out of boost fuel. For the persistent universe, or for dogfighting in general, that also means that it's just gonna be a little bit better at dodging enemy fire. If you master the ship, you're gonna be a little bit more effective at escaping. Not by much, I don't think. I'm not sure you would really notice the difference if you were in space without all these reference points around you to crash into. Oh jeez. That was luck. That was bad luck. Alright. Whoa! Okay. You'd think I was just messing around here. And the sad truth is I'm really trying really trying my best. Oh man. I've flown the Gamma before. Spoiler alert. I know I will like that ship okay. But I'm definitely enjoying the Mustang series overall less than I thought I would. This Alpha and Beta just have not won me over. I'm a little offended at the prospect of having to manage my fuel on OB. I think the fact that the Alpha, the Beta, and I'm gonna guess the Delta have fairly low boost fuel, I think that's worth noting for the ship's overall capabilities. So let's see, how did I do there? Okay, so a little bit better. I did manage 5 seconds faster on my laps for this ship, despite slower speeds. Next up is the Delta. Top SEM is 190, top afterburn is 570. meters per second. Alright, let's check it out in game. Oh, this is the fighter of the group. So I'm just gonna guess that it may fly the worst, but we'll see. Actually, what I'm already noticing about this thing though is I think acceleration might be better in the ship. It is. That's a good thing. I think the drift is the same as the alpha and beta, but there's the better acceleration is gonna potentially allow me to make better turns. Gives me traction, so to speak. Oh my gosh, I'm out of boost fuel. I can't spam it. I'm just so used to holding down the boost key the entire time. It's hard to kind of go into that defer think mode and conserve. So I'll kind of trot across the finish line here. Oh jeez. Now if I were practicing any of these ships with the intention of mastering it, I would do a hell of a lot more than 5 laps. If 5 laps is all I wanted to do, I'd do that over a series of practices. You're probably going to want a good 50 laps on all courses in any ship before you're really going to have that muscle memory built up that you can carry into the persistent universe or an arena commander match and truly know how to make your ship go where you want it to go. Some people might need a little more, some people might need a little less, but the bottom line is I would know that I understand the Mustang Delta, for example, when I've got a comfortable racing line, which I don't have here. I'm consistently not running out of boost fuel. I'm consistently not crashing or blacking out. Consistently getting the ship to go where I wanted to go, how I wanted to go there. Which is just to say, you know, none of these ships have I gotten sufficient practice with to really do that tonight. have learned is some of the basics about how they fly. I've also learned a little bit about like whether I want these ships, and you know, how excited I might be to pick them up in the persistent universe when you can purchase ships that way, and you know, the basics of what I can expect if I ever climb into one. Okay. So 50 seconds on that one, so that was kind of middling. I think I got 53 in the alpha, 48-ish in the beta, and now 50 in the delta. Okay, now we come to our breath of fresh air, the Mustang Gamma. You'll notice that its speeds are quite a bit different from the other ones. So you have a top SCM of 255 and a top afterburn of 765. Quite a big jump. And you're going to see that there's also quite a big jump in acceleration. Minimalist says, I'm sorry if you have answered this question. Are you using HOTAS or keyboard or mouse? I'm using keyboard or mouse, no problem. I do answer that question at the beginning of each stream, but it's a goodie, and if people are just joining, I certainly don't mind you asking. So yeah, I use a mouse and keyboard, which is a bit unusual for people who are really interested in racing. Most people use dual sticks. I might down the road sometime. I just don't really want to invest in extra peripherals for a game that hasn't been released. So I got a mouse and keyboard. They serve me real well, and one of the advantages that actually make me wonder if I will make the switch at some point is I really love that when I get out of my seat in my ship and start walking around, I really like that I don't have to move my hands and change my control setup. I certainly don't want to do first-person controls with dual joysticks. I don't think anyone does, but I also find that you can absolutely fly really well with mouse and keyboard. So to me, dual joysticks, it's more about immersion than anything else. That's why I would buy them. So you can see that this ship is just so much better behaved. It does seem to pick up a lot more G's than the other racers, say the 350R or the M50, especially on pitch. So I have to be super careful with this ring. That was a bit of an issue last night with the 300 series, but it's a more serious issue even with this Mustang Gamma here. These 5 laps are going to go a lot faster. He might have changed at some point, but one of the top racers that I do know uses mouse and keyboard is Shive. At least he did when we interviewed him back in February. He's been a little quieter in racing lately, I feel, but used to be that Shive was pretty consistently in the top 5, if not the top first spot on all the tracks for multiple patches. Oh jeez. I chickened out there. I actually stopped my ship so I didn't red out. It's a pretty extreme measure. But it is a lot faster ultimately to just go to a dead stop than to deal with a blackout. It's a little sloppy. And pass out across the line. That would be a lot of fun to fly with dual sticks and pedals. Okay, so 37 seconds. So by 11 seconds, this is the fastest ship. Bottom to top, 15 seconds, 16 seconds. So guess what I'm going to try to race in multiplayer? Did I change my key bindings? I'm not sure. It's been so long. Let's see. I use W, A, S, and D for strafe. So W is forward, S is back, A is left, D is right. I think that's probably default. I use space for up and control for down. So that's basically the strafing thrusters. I don't necessarily use those very much in racing, but I do have them there, and sometimes if I need to correct my G's a little bit, or if I'm just shy of missing a ring and I don't want to adjust my line, I might hit those keys. Use caps lock for toggling afterburner. I toggle at the beginning of every race and leave it on, and I have shift mapped to boost. And unless I'm flying deferred, track where I need to manage my fuel like this, then I have boost held down the entire time. And I use my mouse to orient my ship, so for pitch and for yaw, and I use my mouse wheel for throttle. So that's one of the handicaps, I suppose, of using the mouse and keyboard. I don't have a analog throttle really. The mouse wheel kind of fakes it a bit, but it's a linear throttle. Every click up the rung is about 5 to 10 meters per second, sometimes 15, depending on how I have my sensitivity set. And then I recently, as in like a month ago, I mapped 2 of my side mouse buttons to throttle full and throttle full stop, because I found that there were a few tracks with a few rings that I want to exit out going full throttle, and a few rings that I want to pretty much slow down to a near stop going through them. So I use those buttons to make my acceleration and deceleration a little bit more precise and a little faster through those rings. Great. Someone joined. Yeah, the M50 is hands down the best racing ship right now. There's no question. And I mean, if you talk amongst say the top 10 to 25 people on the leaderboards, there's no argument there. No one's arguing for the 350R right now that I know of. Some people have a pet ship that they really like. I think oh, am I gonna forget his name? I think Dan McSharp was a racer who wanted to really race his Mustang. I'm not sure if it was Omega or a Gamma in the Crux Cup. He's got some pretty awesome laps, much faster than I have in my M50 in any ship. on this track. So I'm not saying you can't be fast in other ships, but just in terms of ship abilities, you can't beat the M50 right now. The 350R has a bit of a higher top speed, and that's great. It also accelerates and decelerates a little faster, but its maneuverability is less, its footprint is slightly more, and it runs out of fuel faster. The Gamma is pretty cool. It's just not quite as fast and not quite as nimble, and has a much bigger footprint than the M50. And it doesn't really, it has worse fuel management actually, as far as I can tell. I really appreciate the chat, fellas. That makes this a hell of a lot more fun for me, getting to interact with you guys. And racing, it's a little hard to read it, so forgive me if I get a little bit behind in what you guys are chatting about, or if you're asking questions. Please just allow me till the end of the race to respond. Oh. It's the walk of shame. So 220 is not so good for me, usually around 205. I think I've managed as low as 158 before. Nowhere near the top times, but I'm definitely suffering a little bit flying the Gamma. So far, of course, I haven't flown the ship much, and I've clocked a lot of time in the M50, so it's a little too early to complain. Forget how big this thing is sometimes. So one thing I would like to do when it works out is have people on voice in here. So I just want to put that out there. If anyone ever wants to join the stream, we can do voice in our Discord channel, and you can participate in the stream. So just shoot me a message or an email to Aracer's Perspective if that's something you're interested in doing. Oops. Down the line, we will also have contests, and we will have interviews with top 10 racers and special guests and all that good stuff. I just decided on Saturday that I was going to start streaming ARP, so the ways are countless that I don't know what I'm doing yet, but definitely a lot of ideas being generated as I been streaming this week. looks like I'm pretty far out front, so I'm gonna go ahead and skip my last ring and let these fellas finish the race. Okay. Walk of shame again. Darn it. So it looks like, oh, come on. Looks like about 7:15, 7:13. I'm super excited about the space bikes. Super excited about land races. It's a totally different kind of racing. I don't know how closely folks watching monitor sort of the chat about racing on Spectrum, but one of the debates has been this ring setup and how it really creates this point A to B system where you fly through a ring, you orient to the next ring, you fly straight, because shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line, right? So that's the racing line, and as opposed to all those little markers on the screen with the little arrows that kind of suggest that there's wide turns and big curves and stuff. Really, the way to get a great time on these tracks is to try to pull like a 90-degree turn or whatever you need to orient to the next ring. So land racing is so different in that it's more like you traditionally think of, where you can have tracks with set curves. If they do checkpoint racing on land, I suppose you still might have that 90-degree turn thing. But I love that it's going to be hopefully sort of its own thing potentially. I certainly plan to participate in that every bit as much as I do in these space-based checkpoint races. But we can have actual like roads and tracks with boundaries and crash pads and out of bounds, and there's just a lot of potential there for a lot of variety in gameplay, and I think it's awesome. I also like how there's the opportunity to combine the different types of racing into sort of like a decathlon style race. Cool. Yeah. So originally I had hoped that CIG would manage 3.0 in September. It doesn't look like that's going to happen. That's fine. But I'm not going to delay our September issue because of it. So I'm covering just the Crux Cup and a few other odds and ends for September. But when 3.0 comes out, I'm going to review the Nox. I'm going to review the Razor. I think those are really the only racers that are coming out. But I'm really looking forward to checking out that bike. It's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah, thanks for the feedback, Minimalist. I have thought about doing some instructional videos. I haven't really done yet. One of the things that does hold me back is I'm aware that my flight style is not the best, and I think it's important not to mislead people. Basically, my flight style works for me. I think it's fun. I enjoy doing it, and I'm too stubborn and lazy to change it. But what I think I will do for instructional videos is make sure I get some of the top fivers involved so that they can teach the pitch style racing that is actually superior, and it's the best you can race right now. The Penta guys are great examples of it. Cats and Energy and Husky and Backbone, guys that I'm forgetting, members of Penta, they've got it figured out, and they do the practice and they do the research behind it. I know how they fly, but I've never taken the discipline or the time to personally get experienced with their style, and so I wouldn't be able to create a good instructional video alone. It's easy enough for me to talk about it in the magazine, which I will do. Every issue that we put out, if there's any new information, includes an article on flight mechanics and basically the gold standard of what's best. So that it'll be in the magazine, but the instructional video will have to wait until I can get one of the Penta guys to agree to do a video with me, I think. Contact. You know, you'd think they'd have the Grim Hex track in. I thought that they were going to have the Grim Hex track in for like 2.6.3, but we'll see. Racing is unfortunately the least popular right now, and of any of the Arena Commander game modes anyway, and it gets the least amount of love from CIG. It's almost unchanged since at least 2.0. There's a few small tweaks they made to racing, like fuel management and stuff, but most of those are just carryovers of the flight model, and you can see even in the interviews that the reasons for a lot of those changes have much more to do with how they want dogfighting to be than how they want racing to be. So it's hard to tell which came first on that, the lack of interest in racing or CIG's putting it on the back burner, but I'm hoping for more tracks soon, and the Grim Hex track is a natural next edition, I think. I just tried to pay attention to chat and racing at the same time. It killed me. It literally killed me. So I don't know if this is a bug or a system I haven't figured out yet, but if you're watching my fuel, I have 0, and I was still going afterburner speeds, and I found that if you aren't using boost when you hit 0, and you're not turning sharply, at least a good chunk of the time, you can maintain like that access to those higher speeds without actually having any afterburn fuel. So again, not sure if that's a bug. I haven't really talked to anyone else about it in the community, but that's something that you can try to exploit for now if you want. I don't like anything that's a cheat, but I think when something is built into the game mechanic, even a bug, I think it's fair game. The one that I don't engage in is the ring skimming. If you haven't heard what that is, that's the idea that it can sense you as having kind of passed a ring without you actually going through it. Obviously, you would never want to do that in that case, because it took me longer to get around it. But there's a few rings at the beginning of Defford, for example, that you can save several seconds off your lap if you skim them. So I don't do that personally because I think it's just so obvious that you're supposed to go through the rings. I don't really see an issue with conserving your afterburner. A trick that you could use in 2.6.1 that they eliminated, it was, again, it was a bug. When they introduced fuel consumption, if you suicided your ship, if you destructed your ship, you would respawn with full fuel. So there was a while in 2.6.1 when I was flying Defford where I would have predetermined spots on the track where I would deliberately self-destruct so that I could go full bore the entire time, not worry about fuel management, just hold down my boost key. I think that was pretty common practice at the time. Some of the racers who were better at fuel management didn't have to blow themselves up as much as I did, but CIG got wise and fixed that bug. My passion for racing really comes from its simplicity, I think. It's, oh geez, that was so sloppy. It's just such a simple goal. Get from A to B faster than the other guy. So if you have an even playing field, if you've got roughly equal equipment, like say 2 racing ships in Star Citizen, or a regulated NASCAR or regulated Formula 1 car. It's you and the track, and I don't know, it's just so pure. And I love how much flexibility that brings to the sport. I mean, you can get out here and you can race Caterpillars, and you can race Argos, God forbid, and Ursa rovers on the planets, and you could have checkpoint races, and they could create a iteration of a space race at some point where you are essentially flying through a tunnel, which could keep you on the track a little bit more and restrict the corner cutting that happens now. There's just so many different approaches you could take, but the sport itself remains as simple as get there faster than the other guy. Yeah, the fuel does slowly come back. To my knowledge, the mechanic isn't really simulated yet fully, so I don't think you can manipulate how quickly it regenerates in a significant way. Perhaps you can. I can definitely say that I've never been able to notice the advantage or take the advantage. I don't know anyone who really has. I've been known to be wrong from time to time, so maybe it isn't. Maybe it is in game, but I know it's planned. I mean, that's one of the key selling points of the Razor is that it scoops up fuel faster. Now I don't know if that varies by the speed of your ship, but that sure would be cool if it did. I think anything that adds complexity and depth to how you race. I think that's good for racing. You can have people who are better at fuel management because they use less fuel. You can have people who are better at picking up fuel. You can have people that are better at just being faster than their fuel runs out, etc. Yeah, I definitely think that's how the mechanics should be implemented. I don't think it's functioning in 2.6.3.
Contact.
Have you been testing it on the track or in the PU?
Proximity alert. Proximity alert. Dead.
Okay. How are you testing it? So I can recreate the experiment. It seems pretty straightforward, but I just want to make sure that our methods are the same.
Contact.
Never flown Rickard in the Gamma, so if I'm flailing all over the place, that's why.
Contact. Contact.
So that last ring was an example of, oh shoot. Well, it was an example of me forgetting to refuel in the tunnel. I actually have to go back. There's just no way otherwise. But it was also an example of that ring right before the tunnel. I needed a little bit more upthrust, so I went ahead and hit my spacebar to get it. So I don't use those strafe thrusters very often, but that's an instance where I did. What? I think the ring didn't open all the way for me. That very rarely happens to me. A little bit more lag than usual in this race. Oh man, another ring didn't open for me. Now in the M50, I think I'd totally get away with that, but in the Mustang, you just can't. That bigger footprint makes it too hard. As a mouse user, I think that's my favorite thing about the M50. You can just really thread the needle. It's got a nice small footprint. That's one of the things I'm really looking forward to about the Razor, because it's even a little bit smaller. I'll let these guys finish. Okay. Are you just using like your wristwatch then or something? Just kind of manually timing how fast the fuel comes back? I'll definitely check it out. That's the type of detail that I want to know. I really appreciate you sharing that. I don't. I still don't think that you could really exploit it right now. Maybe on Defford. But I always just assumed that when you go faster and you have more fuel at the end of the lap, that's because you spent less time using fuel. And that is a viable strategy right now. On Defford, there is a certain amount of balance where you have to decide: do I want to try to conserve fuel by making it between these rings in a shorter period of time, or do I want to conserve fuel by just not using the fuel in the first place? It's a tough call, and Defford's a much more complicated track because of it. Thanks, Manolis. You too. You have a great night. I do really welcome content about the stream itself. This will be the last race. I'm kind of wrapping up here. But I do want to thank everyone for joining, and I want to invite real feedback about the stream itself, my hosting. I know there's a lot of room for growth here, and I really appreciate any push in the right direction by people simply letting me know what they liked, what they didn't like, even if it's obvious, even if it's telling me to say less or basics like that. It still helps. So I appreciate that, and again, thanks for tuning in. We'll continue our series tomorrow on wreck ships. I think I'm going to do the Hornet set tomorrow. So that's the Hornet Tracker, the Hornet Ghost, and the Super Hornet. And I'll see you guys then. Check us out at aracer'sperspective.com if you haven't already. This is a side gig. The main thing is the magazine. If you haven't read issue 1, check it out. It's still relevant because we're still basically on the same patches that I was writing about then. And give us feedback on that too. Either write into the magazine or just hit me up on Spectrum. Comment on one of my videos here, comment on YouTube, etc. So take care, guys, and good night.